Hi, and welcome back to Ivy English. I'm Karen.
And I am Chris Gorski.
Today we're on page 75 in your magazines. It is March 27th. Today we're going to hear part 2 of the article that we started yesterday. We kind of left you hanging at the end. Yesterday we were talking about the tulip and about this incredible bubble back in the 1600s. Tulips became more and more and more expensive till it cost you maybe 4 to 10 times your yearly income to buy a tulip, which sounds really crazy. Eventually, the prices crashed, as they have to when they get that high. So we were talking mainly about the economics of tulips historically yesterday, but we ended up talking about festivals about the tulip. And we've got other things to talk about related to the tulip. Our title is Things You Never Knew About the Tulip, and we're going to continue today. So, Chris, you want to take over?
For sure. Let's take a look at paragraph 1. Tulips have a long history. And it is thus not surprising that they are steeped in symbolism. Red tulips symbolize perfect or deep love, a meaning that stems from legends from the Turkish and Persian regions where the flowers originated. Although there are different variations, one famous legend was that a prince named Farhad fell in love with a woman named Shirin. One day, Farhad heard the news that Shirin was killed. Overwhelmed with grief, the prince rode his horse over a cliff, and a red tulip grew from his blood. Other colors have specific meanings as well. For example, white means forgiveness. Purple stands for royalty. Pink is associated with happiness and confidence, and yellow symbolizes cheerful thoughts. Since tulips are among the first flowers of spring to bloom, they also symbolize rebirth.
One tulip color you will never see is the black tulip. There have been numerous attempts, but no success yet. The shade closest to black you'll likely spot is a very dark purple. The drive to cultivate a black tulip was initially sparked by a novel by Alexandre Dumas entitled La Tulipe Noire, the Black Tulip, in which a prize is established for the person who can grow a black tulip. A good place to view the real-life results of the attempts to grow a black tulip is at Keukenhof, one of the largest flower gardens in the world. Located in the Dutch town of Lisse, it has 7 million flower bulbs, which are planted each year. Keukenhof is open for just 2 months, from the middle of March to mid-May, and draws in about 26,000 visitors per day during that period. Now, that's as far as we're going to go talking about the tulip. And remember, we have 4 questions to answer at the end. So we're going to go back and go over this part and come back to our questions.
In 1943, Dutch Princess Marguerite was born in Canada. The royal family had fled the Netherlands at this time because of the war in Europe. The room where she was born actually needed to become an international territory because otherwise the princess would be unable to inherit her Dutch citizenship from her mother. So each year, as a thank you to Canada, the Dutch royal family sends Ottawa, the capital of Canada, 10,000 tulip bulbs.
Oh, my goodness.
Isn't that an interesting little story?
It is.
I didn't have a good place to send this, to put this, and I said, let's do it right at the top. So now let's get into paragraph 1 properly. Tulips have a long history, and it is thus not surprising that they are steeped in symbolism.
Symbolism means that one thing stands for another thing, and we're going to have a bunch of examples in the coming sentences, so we don't need to say too much about it right now. But to symbolize something means when I see this, I think of something else that it stands for. To be steeped in something means that it has very rich symbolism. The symbolism is sort of a really important part of this thing. Steep itself means to soak something in something else. For example, to steep tea. You put the tea leaves in the pot and pour on hot water. You are steeping tea. The tea leaves are steeping in the water.
If you were to take cut tulips and put them in water, you are not steeping them because generally this also means that you want to eat or consume it. But if you do put cut tulips into a pot of water, they'll continue to grow usually another inch. They're weird plants in that you cut it, they'll keep growing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they'll keep growing.
Wow, okay. So it's steeped in symbolism. There are a lot of things that tulips can be used to stand for.
Our next sentence says, red tulips symbolize perfect or deep love, a meaning that stems from legends from the Turkish and Persian regions where the flowers originated.
Now, I would say that's not so surprising because red in general stands for love in Western culture. It's the color of blood. We relate it to the heart, passion. So red stands for love in many, many situations and many contexts. But here they're going to tell you a story about why it's particular to the tulip in this case.
Let's continue with that story. Although there are different variations, one famous legend was that a prince named Farhad fell in love with a woman named Shireen.
So they're going to give you an example. They're saying that this symbolism comes from, one of the places it comes from, is a legend. It's a story that probably didn't happen, but people passed it on from generation to generation. And it was from the region of Turkey and Persia. A lot of things, a lot of cultural things came from Persia, actually. And this was all, as Chris said earlier, part of the Ottoman Empire at that time. And so there are many different ways of telling the story, but in one version, that means just one way of telling the story, there was a prince, and he fell in love, as happens in so many stories, with a woman, and her name was Shireen.
One day, Farhad heard the news that Shireen was killed.
All right, this is also, I think, a typical beginning of many stories. Something terrible happens. What is he going to do? He's so totally in love with this woman, but now she's dead. What is he going to do?
Overwhelmed with grief, the prince rode his horse over a cliff, and a red tulip grew from his blood.
All right, now things are getting kind of legendy, kind of crazy. Overwhelmed with it means you are so sad that you cannot take it anymore. You cannot tolerate it. You cannot live with it. You are going crazy. You cannot make yourself feel better. You are just too sad. So what did he do? He got on his horse. He said, if I can't have her, I don't want to live, is what he thought, which is too extreme. Please don't do that yourself.
This is so unfair for the horse. Can you imagine being this horse?
Great comment.
running off the cliff like, why are you doing this to me?
I have that thought really often when I read history, like especially of the Civil War and other things. Animals have been so mistreated.
Yeah.
They still are now so often. And you think, what did they do to deserve this?
Yeah.
That's a really interesting saying in English. It means if you say, what did I do to deserve this? Why are you treating me so badly? Or what did the horse do to deserve this? Why are you treating this horse so badly? It was probably a very good, faithful horse.
And interestingly, there's a lot of cultures that especially adore certain animals. You're going with them, or they are coming with you when you die. We can see here that he probably quite adored his horse. My horse, when I die, is coming with me. And of course, we saw that in Egypt rather famously, where your cat is going to go with you. I would not want that to happen to my cats. I'll leave them money, take care of my cats. I don't need you to kill my cats so I can be with them in the afterlife. I'll meet them when they die.
Actually, I've read about old people saying that they want to make sure that their cat is well taken care of.
Absolutely would do that.
There's another modern example, and that is dogs are used a lot in combat in Iraq. They have been used a lot. And so I've read stories where a soldier and his dog, they are constant companions. They help each other. The dog actually has a very strong feeling of purpose. The dog knows how important his work is. And then one time when a dog saw his soldier master destroyed by a bomb, he jumped into a bomb and he was just exploded and died. The dog jumped in too. I know, it's sad, but appreciate your animals is the lesson. Okay, back to our text. So this prince was just so sad. He didn't want to live anymore, and he chose to commit suicide, to kill himself. How did he do it? He got on his horse and then told the horse to run over the cliff, which the horse did because it obeyed its orders. And I really like Chris's reaction. He doesn't think about the prince. The prince decided. He chose to die, but the horse did not. So it was so unfair to the horse. And then they say that he fell down into the ravine, into the valley, and then he died and probably splattered all over the place.
Oh, God.
I know. I thought I'd be a little graphic here. Splattered, that means it's kind of just spraying all over the place. So it's red. And from this red, people imagined that a red flower grew from it, and the flower they said grew from it was the tulip.
Now, this tells us one thing. If you see in this story that a tulip, or let's say another flower grows, this flower has some symbolism, to use the word from earlier. They could have picked any flower, but they picked the tulip. This tells us that the Persians and the people of Turkey or the Ottoman Empire valued this flower, and likely it was commonly found there. And in fact, the word tulip comes from the word that means turban. We have a turban is the hat commonly worn by some Middle Eastern people. A turban is Turban. And it also tells us that those flowers were everywhere. And sure enough, as we discussed a little bit yesterday, that the flowers had reached the Ottoman Empire by 1055. And indeed, in the 15th century, Sultan Mehmed II of the Ottoman Empire had so many tulips that he needed 920 gardeners to take care of them all. So indeed, the tulip was a very common flower of Turkey.
I can barely keep a cilantro plant alive.
But keep eating it, right?
Yeah, cilantro is that herb that a lot of people don't like, but many Chinese do like, that you can just wash it and then put it on top of meat and other dishes and things. So look it up if you don't know it. It's also called coriander.
Let's continue. Other colors have specific meanings as well. For example, white means forgiveness, purple stands for royalty, pink is associated with happiness and confidence, and yellow symbolizes cheerful thoughts.
These colors are not specific just to tulips. These are general meanings of these colors in Western culture overall, in my experience. That yellow is cheerful, I think that's true. We like yellow plants to cheer up a room. But that's different from China, where yellow was associated with the emperor. It was a royal color.
Interestingly, purple has long been associated with the royalty in the West, and purple for a long time was a banned color. If you were not royalty or of a certain rank, you weren't allowed to wear purple. But frankly, most people didn't need to worry about that because purple became the royal color because it was so expensive to make. It was a very intense and rich color, which meant you needed a lot of purple dye to make your colors purple. You needed to indeed be a very rich person to ever have purple at all.
So we don't have time to talk about it in the program, but if you're interested, look it up, because one way of getting purple was from a sea animal, and you could only get a little bit of dye from each one. So you find these piles and piles of shells in Mexico where they used to collect it because they were collecting this dye. It was indeed very, very expensive. Our last sentence of the paragraph.
Since tulips are among the first flowers of spring to bloom, they also symbolize rebirth.
Okay, so because it's one of the first flowers that you see after a long winter, it's pretty cold in the Netherlands in winter, not as bad as Minnesota, but pretty cold. One of the first flowers you see is a tulip, so you think, springtime is finally here.
I definitely think of my father's garden. He always planted tulips, and we would always have tulips in March, growing through the snow in Buffalo.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
They'd come right out of the snow.
My goodness.
They like the cold, I suppose, and you'd get one warm day and they'd start to bloom. Tulips are, in fact, the world's third most popular flower. Now, roses are, of course, number one, Valentine's Day. Number two, interestingly, is the chrysanthemum.
Oh.
Right, which I thought was odd. And then third
the Chinese are very big on chrysanthemums.
Japanese
and
must be all
Chinese.
Asia.
Yes.
And then third are tulips.
I would say East Asia. Yeah, that's right. And they are beautiful. They have very bold colors. Our last paragraph, one tulip color you will never see is the black tulip. And I think this is easy enough. We don't have to spend time on it. I don't think for flowers in general it's easy to find a black flower, but they were particularly interested in tulips, and they tried really hard, but they couldn't quite get black. There have been numerous attempts, but no success yet. So people really tried. They thought, wow, a black tulip, that would be something. I will mention something that they have succeeded in producing, and that is a black apple. If you've looked at that on the internet, there's a kind of apple now that has a black skin. It's almost black. And you have to store it for a couple months, and then it has this wonderful flavor like vanilla and other things. So if you're interested in a plant with black on the outside, in this case, it's an apple peel, Look up black apples and you'll find an interesting story.
Black flowers kind of make sense if we know the function of a flower. It's not to look beautiful for us. It's to help the plant reproduce.
Right.
Insects see color. They're not very good at seeing individual things or objects. So they need bright, vibrant colors, and they're attracted to that. Insects that like flowers are not out during the day, and therefore a black flower doesn't make sense for its biology. Insects won't go to it, it won't reproduce, and it cannot continue its bloodline. Or it's not its bloodline, but its
genes
could not be passed on.
Right.
Black flowers don't make sense in evolution.
Unless they are ultraviolet, because insects can often see ultraviolet light. But apparently it just didn't happen. The shade closest to black you'll likely spot is a very dark purple. And that makes sense. There are lots of purple flowers. And purple is about the same as violet. Violet is a name of a plant, and it's about the same color as purple. For me, when we were kids, we used purple. Violet sounded like a fancy word. I don't know about for you guys.
Violet meaning
a color, as a color.
I mean, you might have to re-say that. I didn't catch what you meant.
Oh, I see.
You said violet was...
Okay, so when I was naming a color when I was a kid, I would say purple. Violet sounded like a fancy book word.
Oh, all right. So myself, I probably also wouldn't say violet except when I needed to remember the colors of the rainbow. And in science class, our science teachers always taught us the word Roy G. Biv. And this person's name also represent or symbolize the colors of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue,
indigo.
Violet. Indigo. Did I miss one?
Violet. There we go. It's in Biv. Right. All right, let's continue. The drive to cultivate a black tulip was initially sparked by a novel by Alexandre Dumas entitled La Tulipe Noire, the Black Tulip, in which a prize is established for the person who can grow a black tulip. So now you see literature affecting life.
I hope we do get the opportunity to bring up Dumas in the future. Hopefully we'll have a 2-day article about what an interesting person.
Oh, yeah, colorful.
Oh, yeah, colorful and great books. This guy's got it all.
All right, to cultivate means to grow, to develop or to grow. A black tulip initially sparked. That means it was begun. It was set off. It was started off by a novel by Alexandre Dumas. And actually, I'm sure you're familiar with him. Look up the Chinese. We won't talk more about him now. Maybe we'll have him in a future program. Entitled means the title of the book was, but we can put it in one word. Entitled, and La Tulipe Noire is the French. Literally, it means the black tulip. And so they set up a prize for the person who could grow a black tulip. They would get this prize. And that's what started the whole thing off in real life.
To establish just means to create.
Our next sentence, a good place to view the real-life results of the attempts to grow a black tulip is at Keukenhof, one of the largest flower gardens in the world. So if people are still trying to grow that black tulip, and it hasn't quite succeeded yet. It's still just dark purple. But if you want to see what it looks like, if you ever go to the Netherlands, go to Keukenhof, and they have huge, huge flower gardens.
Doesn't this sound like just a great vacation? I just want to go right now.
It does, but I did my PhD in the Netherlands, so I have other places I haven't visited. The Netherlands is a wonderful place to visit, but there's so many other places I haven't visited yet.
I've yet to go, so
okay,
you'll tell me where to go next time.
In that case, go. It's definitely worth visiting, but I want to go to some other places first, not to put down the Netherlands. Located in the Dutch town of Lisse, it has 7 million flower bulbs, which are planted each year. Now, that just tells you the scale. That means how many they plant every year, 7 million bulbs. That's a lot of tulip bulbs. Keukenhof is open for just 2 months, from the middle of March to mid-May, and draws in about 26,000 visitors per day during that period. And as Chris was saying, that the tulips can grow right through the snow, and that puts us in about March. That's the end of winter, very beginning of spring. And their season is limited. So after May, they probably don't bloom anymore. Is that right?
Yeah, tulips generally last just 3 to 7 days, which makes yesterday all the more remarkable. People spent $1 million NT plus on a single flower that will last you maybe a week. It's so frivolous to the point that I can't imagine spending that kind of money.
Let's spell the word frivolous.
Absolutely.
Because it's an important word. That means that you get really interested in something and you spend a lot of money on something that is not really that worthwhile. It's frivolous. You could have spent that money, for example, giving it to a charity, but you spent it on one single flower. Frivolous is spelled F-R-I-V-O-L-O-U-S. F-R-I-V-O-L-O-U-S, frivolous. What a frivolous thing to spend so much money on.
Now, interestingly, tulips are a very special plant, but they're related to many more common plants that we all know, such as the lily, asparagus. It's related to garlic, and it's related to onion.
Yes.
Meaning you can cook with it. It's not always the best tasting, but sure enough, during World War II that we began the program with, it was often used as a substitute for regular flour because people didn't have enough food to eat for bread. It's not great bread, but you won't die of hunger.
We call foods like this famine foods. Famine is when nobody has enough to eat. F-A-M-I-N-E. Maybe some rich people do. F-A-M-I-N-E. Famine is when everybody is hungry. The whole country is suffering. Famine foods. It's a kind of famine food. We finished the article, and now we have 4 questions to answer. The first one is, number 1, which of the following best describes an economic bubble? A, when the price of commodities rises dramatically. That means when things get really expensive. B, when prices become very high and then crash. That means they get very expensive and then they become very cheap again, and that's the answer. The answer is B. But let's also listen to C, when consumers become excited about new products. No, that's not a bubble. And D, when no one is interested in buying products or services. That is also not a bubble. It's the opposite of a bubble. The answer is an economic bubble is when prices become very high and then crash.
Number 2, according to the passage, what is a possible cause of the end of tulip mania? A, other countries began growing tulips. Well, we didn't even talk about that. B, poor weather destroyed tulip crops. We didn't talk about that either. C, the Dutch economy failed, which is not actually true, although a lot of people believe it. We also didn't talk about that. And finally, D, a serious disease occurred, which was the plague. And interestingly, in some ways, it actually helped tulip mania because everybody had money to spend. The correct answer is D, a serious disease occurred.
And some months ago, we saw in the news that there were 2 cases of Black Death in Beijing.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So an old disease has come back. Make sure you are careful. All right, number 3. Where was the tulip first grown according to the passage? So the very first tulip, where was it grown? It may not be actually that accurate, but it's what we're using here. According to the passage, A, in France. No, it wasn't first grown in France. B, in the Netherlands. No, it was grown in the Netherlands later on. C, in Turkey and Persia. That's what is given in the article, although Chris has enlightened us about the real origin being somewhere in Pakistan or Tibet. But C is the correct answer here based on the information in the article. And D, in many countries around the world. That's awfully general and it's not true. The answer is C, in Turkey and Persia.
Finally, number 4, which of the following statements is not true about the tulip? A, the symbolism of red tulips originated from the Middle East. Well, no, we did talk about that. B, tulips bloom earlier than many other flower species in spring. Well, that's true also. It happens in spring.
And Chris gave us a first-hand example, which impressed me. Yeah.
And C, Keukenhof has tulips on display year-round. Well, that's not true because tulips only bloom in early spring, although you can force them other times of the year. And D, no one has successfully grown a black tulip. And we know that is also a true statement because they're still trying to do it.
That's right. So the answer is C. They do have them on display, but only about 3 months of the year. Now, I'm sure there are lots of places where you can find some beautiful tulips to admire in Taiwan. So now you'll probably feel a closer connection to tulips. And that's it for